Israelites Exposed.
Actually Hebrew Israelites? Hello everyone, my name is Taharka Ade, an Africologist, scholar of Africa and the African diaspora. And many of you may have heard the claim that black people in the Americas are actually the descendants of Hebrew Israelites sold off during the Atlantic slave trade. And in many circles, that claim largely hinges on an interpretation of Deuteronomy 28:68. Here's the verse in question. In verse 68, it states, "The Lord will bring you back in ships to Egypt by a route that I promised you would never see again. And there you shall offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but there will be no buyer." And people have used this verse to come to the wildly erroneous conclusion that this must be talking about the Atlantic slave trade, and that the people who were taken weren't Africans, but they were Israelites. But that verse doesn't say that people will be taken to the Americas. It says that people will be taken back to Egypt. And not only that, it says that you will offer up yourselves as slaves, but there will be no buyer. That is the complete opposite of the Atlantic system, where Africans were very famously bought. In fact, there were mass buyers, auction markets, plantation demand, and a whole finance and shipping economy built around it. The Atlantic system pulled people from many different African societies, different languages, regions, spiritual systems, and different identities that deserve to be respected. Collapsing all of that into Hebrew Israelites and not these diverse African groups erases real African history and is quite frankly very disrespectful to the people who were enslaved. The Black Hebrew Israelite movement is an American-born movement shaped by late 19th century biblical interpretation, especially the holiness and Pentecostal church traditions. There's also Ethiopianism, a sprinkle of Black nationalism, and later Black religious currents that led to the development of what we now call the Hebrew Israelite movement. It's a modern identity movement, not a demonstrated family tree. There's no solid historical or genealogical evidence that African Americans have a direct ancestral lineage to ancient Israel via West Africa, as these claims suggest.
So, the brother says there's no historical evidence that proves that the slaves that came over here from Africa were Israelites. All right, let's go to the book From Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor. All right, we're in page 84 of the book. Second paragraph says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under Pompey captured Jerusalem in 70 AD. General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of Black Jewish slaves. See that? The brother says there's no historical proof that links the Jews to the Atlantic slave trade.
It's only by the grace of God that any of these people will reach their as yet unknown destinations alive. Or maybe it's his will that they don't. So, Lieutenant, why are you venturing into those forsaken regions?
What do you know about a man named Shaka?
Does that answer your question, Lieutenant? The Masani tribe, Omolos, Lubis, Unos, Yunguanis, countless others, the banished of Southeast Africa, fleeing Shaka's spears, going straight into the arms of the white slave traders and the British troops on the borders of the Cape Colony. In a way, Lieutenant, they are the ultimate victims of recent history. If you'll favor my comparison, they are the wandering Jews of Africa. Fleeing the Pharaoh Shaka, they are the wandering Jews of Africa. Fleeing the Pharaoh Shaka, they are the wandering Jews of Africa. Fleeing the Pharaoh Shaka into the Babylonian captivity of slavery.
So the brother says he's an African scholar, But look at all the books. Look at all the books in the background. He says he's an African scholar, but he doesn't know his own history. And he denies it when the Israelites, bring it to light. Why is that? So, what I've noticed is that if the Bible contradicts your lifestyle, the way that you living, you know, whether you in sin or homosexuality, then you're going to deny this Bible. You're going to try to discount everything that's in this Bible. So, in other words, the brother does not believe. He does not believe this book. To him, it's just a fairy tale, you see. But I pray that the brother repents and, try to humble yourself. Humble yourself and, learn history. Shalom.